So I'm here today at Graeme McPherson's up at Martin's Hill. I'm going to ask him a few questions. He's showing me around. We're at the gallops now to see the horses doing a bit of work. So you've been professionally training for almost a decade now, I believe.
It has. It doesn't seem that long,
Yeah.
but no, it has been, yeah.
And you've got obviously a fantastic team that work behind you. I think every yard has. Probably more important for you though, because this isn't your sole occupation. But being a barrister, I guess you're probably quite ambitious. You've got big dreams, all that sort of stuff. So in the training sphere, what would success look like to you?
Quality, not quantity. I'm full of admiration for people that can train 100, 150 horses, but that's never going to be us. We had our biggest ever yard probably last season before last, and we were up around the sort of 70 horses. And if I'm being honest, that was probably a bit too big. We've cut down a lot. We've thinned out, and as I say, we focus more on quality than quantity now. We're sort of 40, 45 to go through the winter with, which is just a nice number. We go a little bit higher. So it wouldn't be number of winners, it would be having those really, really nice winners, the Saturday horses, the graded horses. So that's the ambition.
I got into horse racing through my dad. It's the same story for you, I believe. Is that sort of an inspiration for why you actually decided to get into training, not just sticking with the barristering?
Do you know, the honest answer to that is I don't know. I remember going racing a lot with my dad. I remember going pointing a lot when I was youngster, but I haven't really got any background in racing at all. We purely went as spectators and punters, and we used to have a whale of a time. And then I got into my 20s. I met my wife, who could not believe that I was passionate about racing, and I'd never even sat on a horse, let alone a racehorse. So I learned to ride. I rode in a few points really, really badly, but I loved it. And I just got bitten by the bug. And we went from riding pointers to training them, and we had a good bit of success training pointers. We had a winner at the Cheltmental meeting, the Hunter Chase meeting. We went from there to taking out a professional licence, and yeah, 10 years on, here we are.
So we've seen them work up in the hills already today.
Yeah.
What sort of things do you do for like variants for the horses? Because I think the typical thing is we know that horses will go up a hill.
Yeah.
There's been comments, I think, from the Racing Post guy recently saying that it's quite easy to be a racehorse trainer. You just run them up and down a hill. So can you elaborate a bit more?
If only it were that easy, yeah.
Give us some insight to what are the other things that you probably do with them then.
I mean, the majority of the work that we do, right from when they first come in from the summer, right the way through to getting them race fit, is done on the hill. It's what we've got here. We've got 5 furlongs. It's a good all-weather surface. It's kind. It minimises the risk of injuries. But running up a hill every day is pretty dull, and horses get stale doing it. So we've got a big circle. We do work around there. We take them away for away days just to let them enjoy seeing something different, doing something different, and then obviously they get turned out every day as well. They'll get an hour a day in the paddock at least. If it's a nice day, they can spend all morning out there as long as they're back in for lunch, and then they have a steady afternoon. But it's keep them fresh, keep them happy.
So we're back in from the gallops now. We're just going to have a look at some of the horses. Dublin IV was that infamous horse for the Huntingdon incident, Graeme. What can you tell us about him for the rest of the season?
Well, look at it, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, would it? So the chasing will be his game this year. Novice handicap chasing. He's already rated, what is it, 119, I think, and he's got, I think, there's a bit of fat in that. So I'd like to think he can improve a fair bit as the season goes on. Jumps really, really well. Jumped really well in his first start over fences. Jumped, just like an old handicapper. And he's tough as nails. He's just a lovely horse. You can see he's got a beautiful size and scope to him. We always thought he'd make a chaser, and I think he's one that we will have a lot of fun with this winter.
So the second horse we've come to see is A View to See. I'm really big into my point form. This lad was behind French Dynamite. I think he was giving him £5 as his second spin, so you can't take it too literally. But that horse has come second in a Grade 2 Lismullen hurdle, I think, 149 rated now. He won his bumper the last day, looked pretty good. That's another one of yours that wins his bumper second time up. What's the plans with him? Novice hurdling this season or next?
To be discussed is the answer to that. I'd like to think he could win a bumper under a penalty. Whether or not we go down that route, whether or not we say, right, let's get him out in January or late December, try and win a novice hurdle with him. Problem with doing that is he's a soft ground horse. If we would have a dry spring, then realistically, that means his novice season is then January, February, possibly March. And then you put him away, and then where do you go with him next season? You go handicap hurdling or whatever. The alternative is stick to bumpers this year and then hopefully have a really, really good novice season next year. I think he's got the potential to be a really quite smart novice hurdler. He toughed it out when he won his bumper. He's got an engine. He stays, and he jumps really well. He scored really well at home. So at the moment, I'm leaning slightly towards sticking down the bumper route this year, saving his novice season for next year.
Yep, superb, makes sense. So here we've got Marble Sands. This is a half brother to Sandsend. That's a horse that I really liked. Unfortunately, the ill-fated Sandsend. That was a 145 horse. This horse won his second bumper. So again, you've been rumbled, Graeme. That's the time that they go in. It looks a really, really nice type. What's the plan with him?
I think this lad has got potential to be really, really smart. He will win a bumper under a penalty, I think, if we pick the right race. So I think if we go somewhere a little bit more low-key, midweek, then we can see where we are in the spring. And then whether or not we say, look, he's only 4 now, 5 in the, after New Year. Do we go for a good bumper in the spring under a penalty, save his novice for next year? Do we go straight over hurdles? I don't know. But when we do go over hurdles, he is definitely one to be on the right side of. He's a super, super horse. He jumps really well. And look, he's already shown he's got a fantastic engine.
Yeah, and like you say, won off a 20 to 1 in that Ascot bumper. That was too big a price, probably, given his first bumper worked out quite nicely as well.
The first bumper certainly worked out well. I suspect part of it was people looking at our record at Ascot, which was we'd never had a winner there. So why were we going to start that day? But we were quietly confident he would run a very, very nice race. Lily Pinchin rode him that day, gave him an absolute peach pretty much from the front. He had the benefit of experience when some didn't. Quickened beautifully in the home straight, and certainly from a furlong out, didn't look like he was ever going to get beaten. I mean, even when the Ollie Murphy horse came to him, he went on again, and he won going away that day.
So Marble Sands is definitely one to follow then?
Marble Sands is definitely one to follow. I think, all being well, you'll hear big things about him over the next few years.
So we're now with Flana, a recent winner, second time in a bumper as well. He's 5 going 6, bred to stay, so I'm guessing you'll be going over hurdles this season, will you?
Yeah, going over hurdles next with him. We ran him in a bumper at Hereford. We thought he'd run well, but equally thought he'd need the experience. He's professional in the race, but beforehand completely green. It was obviously a big experience for them the first time they go racing. But he came out of that bumper well, and we thought, right conditions, a testing bumper, testing conditions, he could really run well. We took it in a banger, soft ground, and he did. He won it really well. He hit the front, 2.5 furlongs out, headed inside the last furlong, battled back, and held on nicely. But yeah, he will improve for going over a hurdle, and he will improve for going up in trip as well.
Yeah, and then obviously longer term it will be chasing with him, like you say, staying and chaser down the line.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, you can see he is a lovely, lovely big horse. We didn't even think about running him last year because he was such a big, weak horse. This year he's filled his frame nicely. Years hurdling this year, and then I'd like to think we'll probably go chasing with him sooner rather than later, probably.
So we're now with the legend that is Ami Dubois. You're now eligible for veterans races, aren't you, boy? So his mark, Graeme, looked probably in normal company that it might be a bit high now. That decent run at Kelso where he was unlucky to finish second, similar story at Sandown not so long ago as well. Do you reckon he'll get away with it in these veterans races maybe now?
Do you know, I think he might. Last year, he was always just vulnerable to a younger, improving horse, and because he tries his heart out, he'd be finishing second, he'd be finishing third, and the handicapper wouldn't have any choice but either put him up a pound or to leave him where he was. Veterans chases, none of them are improving. They're all either at the peak or perhaps even slightly past their peak, and I think as a result, he should just be a bit more competitive this year, and hopefully we can get his head back in front.
Have you got any shorter or longer term plans of him? Because he's looked like a horse that could have been potentially a national type, but maybe the age that he is now, that's not a route you want to go down?
He had an entry in the national last year. He would have probably needed another 2 or 3 pounds to get in, so whether he would have done, I don't know. I think it would be a perfect race for him. I mean, look, he stays all day, he jumps for fun. But no, I think the days of possibly running him in that are behind him. Veterans chases this year, I'd like to think that actually perhaps either next year or the year after, hunter chases are the way forward for him as well. Again, once they reach the end of their career, if you can find something that just makes life a little bit easier for them, but still lets them perform on the big stage, so much the better. And you know, he's a syndicate horse. He's been a syndicate horse since day one, and for many of the people in that syndicate, he's a horse of a lifetime. And, if we can carry on winning with him, even in a slightly different sphere over the next couple of years, I'll be a very happy man, certainly.
So thinking forward for those fox hunters, 2022, is it the Cheltenham or the Aintree fox hunters, do you think?
I think Aintree, the fences would be great, but I think they'd take him off his legs a bit over 2.5. I think it would have to be the Cheltenham fox hunters.
So a couple of horses that we haven't got to see that I'd like to know a little bit about. Sami Lou, obviously he's rung up a bit of a sequence this summer, so that was nice to see.
Yeah.
Is stone lighter over fences, so is there a temptation to go back in that sphere? 2 runs, wasn't it?
There's a temptation. Whether or not it's a temptation I should succumb to, I don't know. He improved well over a stone this summer. I think it was a combination of running him on really nice ground. We always felt he liked a sound surface, but trying to find that during the winter was harder, so we switched him to be a summer horse. And then real staying extreme trips. I mean, if you look at his runs, take the last run at Newbury out the equation, every run was at Newton Abbot, every run was over a 3 mile 2. And we actually dropped him back in trip for the Pertonks qualifier at Newbury. So that's been the key to him. He's not the biggest of horses and he hasn't got the most scope, so whether or not he will improve over a fence in the same way he's improved over a hurdle, I just don't know. We might give him a go next summer. I think jumping off a sounder surface will help him, but I think he'll always be a better hurdler than chaser. Yeah,
that's fair enough, and he's obviously been the grand servant as well for the yard, so you're going to want to mind him, won't you?
Of course, this summer he really I mean, once out the frame, I think, from all his starts through the year. We figured if he won one more down at Newton Abbot, they'd have to name a bard after him down there. But,
so he's obviously a good ground specialist. The same goes for Callum Gilhooly.
Callum Gilhooly, yes.
So he ran the handicap that he ran in was sent off 4-1 joint. Was like a bit far down the field for what his price probably suggested.
That was Wetherby, last run of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say put a line through it because it was still a creditable performance, but it absolutely hammered it down that day. And we ummed and ahed about whether even to run him. We figured if we didn't run him, that was probably it for the season because his ground had gone. So he ran really creditably, given that it was ground that he hated. And I wouldn't write him off just on the basis of that run. He'd run very well in a really big field competitive Warwick handicap before then, and he'd obviously won 2 novices through the summer. So he's a lovely tough horse. He's another one actually. He's not the biggest. He's by Calanisi. He probably will jump a fence, but I think we'll stick with hurdling for the time being, certainly. And you'll see him out again in the spring, and there's improvement to come. There's still wins to be had with him, certainly.
Excellent. So that's a couple of horses that we haven't seen, but we're not going to see for a while anyway. So have you got anything that's going to be coming up soon that the people at home need to know about?
I will give you 2 that will run through the winter. It's a brother-sister combination. And the sister arrived because we think so much of the brother. The brother's a horse called Eye of the Scorpion, who is, as the name suggests, he's by Scorpion. He is a big, gangly horse. And last year we ran him once, ran really well, then he was sick. And this year he came back out the field and got his handicap mark, and then he just dotted up in a handicap first time out. I mean, he surprised us. He didn't surprise everyone because he was backed in. I'm not quite sure where the money came from, but he won very, very well. The handicap, I think, probably overreacted. We had to run him quickly under a penalty as a result. There was nothing ideal. He finished second over a trip that was grossly inadequate. But he'll be out again very soon. Look for him around 2.5, 3 miles. There's plenty of improvement still to come there. And then on the back of him, we've had a mare arrive in the yard called Philippa Sue. Rock solid bumper form over in Ireland. Placed in every single bumper, always behind good horses. and she's a full sister, so she's by Scorpion. She'll stay. She's a lovely big mare. She'll jump, and she's one to look out for in Mares Novice Hurdles this year.
And is there anything from your racing club that's worth a mention, do you think, that's coming up that we haven't covered?
Well, do you know, we've got a lovely little horse called New Zealander, who's the racing club horse for the winter, and he had one run on the flat, didn't do anything at all, and that's when he came here to go juvenile hurdling. And he's run really creditably in straight juvenile hurdles. He'll have a little break now while the ground is really, really bad, but he's got a mark. He'll come back. He'll be loads of fun. He's never going to be a world beater, but he'll certainly be winning off his mark. We have our own racing club here, which it's one horse for the season. You don't buy in, you just pay a one-off fee to join for the year, and then the horse is yours for the year. We usually have 20 people in each club. Anyone that wants to go racing can do, lockdown permitting, and then we do gallops mornings, and we have club mornings, and keep everyone informed as to what's going on. They get videos of their horses, and it's just a good fun way to get involved. And then at the end of the season the club comes to an end. We run one in the winter, one in the summer. Most people who join carry on joining, so it's lovely, and the people that tend to be involved, they've all got to know each other over the years, and we've had a lot of fun, and we've had a good amount of success actually as well. It's usually a disappointing year if we don't get at least one winner.
Oh, brilliant. So we touched on when we were at the Gallops that you do quite a lot of stuff for the social media side of things, and it's obviously free for anyone to go and see the public. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about some of the things you're doing there, and then my guys can go and give it a nice follow?
Oh, please do. Anyone is very, very welcome to follow us. So we've got the website, McPherson Racing. There's a blog goes on there most days, just what we've been up to, runners we've got that day, thoughts as to how those runners might go. We have a good Facebook page and YouTube channel. We publish something called the Martins Hill Mercury. Tends to come out probably every week, 2 weeks, and it's just a review again of what things have been up to. There's some footage from the Gallops, there's some thoughts about upcoming runners, and then we do the odd sort of online Q&A as well. Those are always really good fun to do. Some of the questions that I've been asked in the past have been tricky, but it's always a good fun way to meet new people and let people find out a little bit more about us.
Yeah, so I would really encourage you guys to go and follow the stuff that Graeme's got on there. Obviously I've had a fantastic morning here. Not everyone can obviously get down to yards or can travel about all those bits and pieces, but you can still stay in touch with the action by following all of those channels we've mentioned.